Part 1. The Spark of a Mind. Long before the name Thomas Edison became synonymous with invention, there was a curious boy wandering along the banks of the Huron River in Ohio, his pockets filled with strange objects, bits of wire, old watch parts, hand scraps of paper scribbled with ideas. Born on February 11, 1847, in the small town of Milan, Ohio, Thomas Alva Edison entered a world still lit by candles and oil lamps. America was expanding westward, driven by railroads and ambition, yet the modern age of technology had not yet dawned. Edison's curiosity showed itself early. He was the youngest of 7 children, and by all accounts the most inquisitive. His mother, Nancy Elliott Edison, had once been a teacher and recognized something in her son that formal schooling could not nurture. When the young boy's teachers labeled him addled for asking too many questions, his mother withdrew him from school and took charge of his education herself. "My mother was the making of me," Edison later said. "She was so true, so sure of me, and I felt I had someone to live for." Nancy encouraged her son to read everything he could find. Young Tom devoured books on chemistry, mechanics, and electricity. Soon he was conducting experiments in the family basement, to the great distress of his father, Samuel Edison, who feared the house might explode one day. The boy's fascination with cause and effect, how heat, motion, and magnetism interacted, became the foundation of a lifetime of invention. When Edison was 12, he took a job selling newspapers and candy on trains running between Port Huron and Detroit. It was not just a way to earn money, it was his introduction to the rhythm of modern life. He observed people, markets, and technology in motion. In the baggage car, he set up a small laboratory where he could tinker between stops, often to the bewilderment of passengers. Once, a chemical fire nearly burned down the car, ending his onboard experiments but not his ambition. Edison's thirst for knowledge was insatiable, but so was his sense of independence. At just 15, he learned telegraphy after saving a station master's child from an oncoming train. The grateful father taught him the trade, which would soon open doors to a new world, communication at the speed of electricity. It was during those long nights in telegraph offices, surrounded by the rhythmic clicking of Morse code, that Edison began to glimpse the possibilities of harnessing electrical power. What began as curiosity was slowly becoming a calling. Part 2. The Self-Made Inventor. By the age of 16, Edison was traveling from city to city working as a telegraph operator. The Civil War had ended, and America was reawakening, a fertile ground for invention. Telegraphy, the backbone of the nation's communication system, fascinated Edison because it translated human thought into electrical impulses. He began modifying telegraph machines, experimenting with speed and efficiency, constantly seeking ways to make them work faster and smarter. But his innovations were not always welcomed. Employers often dismissed him for tinkering too much or breaking the machines. Still, Edison's failures only fueled his determination. He was not content to operate other people's devices. He wanted to create his own. In 1868, he arrived in Boston, the intellectual heart of America, where he rented a small workshop and filed his first patent for an electric vote recorder. The idea was brilliant. Legislators could cast their votes instantly through an electrical system, but Congress rejected it, preferring the slower, more deliberate roll call method. "I never want to invent anything that won't sell," Edison remarked afterward. "It's sale that proves the utility." That failure changed his mindset forever. He realized that invention was not just about creativity, it was about solving real problems for real people. He moved to Newark, New Jersey, where he began designing improved telegraph systems and eventually caught the attention of Western Union. His duplex telegraph, capable of sending 2 messages over one wire, made him a rising star in the industry. Edison was tireless, often working 18-hour days. "Genius," he would later say, "is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." The phrase became his creed. His workshop became a place of feverish energy, where sparks flew, wires tangled, and ideas came alive in the hum of machinery. In 1876, Edison took a bold step that would change history. Using money from his telegraph patents, he established a new laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey, a place where invention itself could be industrialized. Part 3. Lighting the World. Menlo Park was unlike anything the world had ever seen. It was not just a workshop, it was a factory of ideas. Here, Edison surrounded himself with a team of talented machinists, chemists, and engineers who shared his relentless curiosity. They called it the Invention Factory, and rightly so. Over the next few years, more than 400 patents would emerge from its walls. Edison's next great challenge was light. The world relied on gas lamps, dangerous and dim, yet reliable enough to make people skeptical of electric alternatives. The concept of electric illumination was not new. Other inventors had experimented with it, but no one had yet made it practical, safe, and affordable. Edison believed he could. For months, Menlo Park became a battleground of ideas. The team tested thousands of materials for a filament that could glow long and bright without burning out. They tried bamboo, carbonized paper, and even human hair. Finally, after countless failures, a carbonized cotton thread sealed in a vacuum bulb burned for more than 40 hours. Edison's light bulb had come to life. On December 31, 1879, he publicly unveiled his invention in Menlo Park. Reporters, investors, and locals gathered as rows of glowing bulbs illuminated the night sky. For the first time in history, darkness was defeated by human ingenuity. Electric light spread like wildfire. Edison built the Edison Electric Illuminating Company and opened the world's first power station in New York City in 1882, lighting up homes, offices, and streets. Humanity had entered a new era, the age of electricity, and Edison was its herald. Part 4. The Menlo Park Dream Factory. When Thomas Edison opened the doors to Menlo Park in 1876, he wasn't just building a laboratory. He was creating a revolution in how humanity approached invention itself. Before Edison, most inventors worked alone, relying on personal trial and error. Edison changed that by forming a collaborative hub, a place where brilliant minds could experiment together, sharing insights and building upon one another's progress. It was the world's first true research and development laboratory, the model upon which modern innovation, from Silicon Valley to NASA, would later be built. Edison's philosophy was simple: work tirelessly, think practically, and never stop improving. The Menlo Park lab operated like a living organism, alive with the hum of ideas. Glassblowers crafted new bulb shapes, chemists tested materials for insulation, and machinists built parts from raw metal. Edison was always in motion, darting between benches, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp with determination. "There's a way to do it better. Find it," he would say, pushing his team to chase perfection. His employees, known as Edison's muckers, worked around the clock. Meals were eaten standing and naps were taken on workbenches. One assistant recalled that Edison sometimes forgot to eat for days. He demanded much from his workers, but he gave even more of himself. The atmosphere was one of excitement and exhaustion, a place where failure was not feared but expected, for every failure was a step closer to success. At Menlo Park, invention became systematic. Edison and his team didn't rely on flashes of inspiration, they relied on experimentation at scale. For the electric light, they tested over 6,000 different materials for the filament. For the phonograph, they tried countless substances before finding the right medium to record sound. The lab became a temple of persistence, where good enough was never good enough. The results were staggering. Between 1876 and 1886, Edison filed more than 400 patents, including the phonograph, the carbon microphone, and improvements to the telegraph and telephone. These creations didn't just change industries, they changed lives. Suddenly, sound could be captured, stored, and replayed. Words could travel across continents in seconds. Darkness could be banished with the flip of a switch. Edison had become a symbol of progress, a living embodiment of the American spirit of innovation. Reporters began calling him the Wizard of Menlo Park. And though he laughed at the nickname, he understood its power. The world needed dreamers, and Edison had become their prophet. Part V, Rivalries and Triumphs. But even wizards have rivals. The greatest of Edisons would come in the form of another brilliant mind, Nikola Tesla. Their paths crossed in the late 1880s, at a moment when the world was deciding how electricity itself would be delivered to the masses. Edison's system, direct current, DC, was simple and effective for short distances, but expensive and inefficient over long ones. Tesla's system, alternating current AC, could travel vast distances cheaply, but it required complex transformers and was less understood by the public. When Tesla began working for Edison's company, he admired the older man's discipline and ingenuity, but the relationship quickly soured. Tesla proposed improvements to Edison's DC system, only to be brushed aside. "You don't understand American humor," Edison reportedly said, after failing to pay Tesla for his suggestions. Tesla left, finding new backers in George Westinghouse, and soon the war of currents began. Edison launched a public campaign warning that Tesla's AC system was dangerous, even sponsoring gruesome demonstrations where animals were electrocuted with AC power. Newspapers fanned the flames, turning the scientific debate into a moral and financial battle. In 1893, at the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, Tesla and Westinghouse powered the fair with AC current, dazzling millions and marking the turning point in the war. AC had triumphed. Edison's system, though foundational, would soon fade from dominance. The defeat stung Edison deeply, but it didn't stop him. He shifted his focus to other pursuits: sound, motion, and image, the next frontiers of sensory experience. "I have not failed," he once said. "I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That attitude kept him moving forward, even when others might have given up. Edison's rivalry with Tesla is often painted as one of good versus evil, genius versus greed. The truth is more complex. Both men were visionaries, but Edison was a pragmatist, while Tesla was a dreamer. Edison wanted to electrify the world today. Tesla wanted to reinvent it tomorrow. Each needed the other, and their competition accelerated progress for everyone. By the dawn of the 20th century, Edison had become one of the most famous men on Earth. His companies merged to form General Electric, a powerhouse that still endures today. Yet even as fortune and fame surrounded him, Edison's heart remained in the lab, chasing that next flicker of inspiration. Part 6. The Motion Picture Pioneer. By the 1890s, Edison's gaze turned toward a new form of magic: motion pictures. The idea of capturing moving images fascinated him as deeply as the phonograph had years before. If sound could be recorded, why not sight? Working with his assistant William Kennedy Laurie Dixon, Edison developed the kinetoscope, a box-like device that allowed a single viewer to watch a short film through a peephole. Inside, a strip of perforated film wound past a light source, creating the illusion of movement. In 1894, the first kinetoscope parlors opened in New York, where curious crowds paid a nickel to watch boxers, dancers, and acrobats flicker to life. Edison soon built Black Maria, the world's first movie studio, on the grounds of his West Orange laboratory. The building had a retractable roof to let in sunlight and could rotate to follow the sun's path. Primitive, yet ingenious. Here, Edison's team filmed some of the earliest motion pictures, including The Kiss and Serpentine Dance. But as with many of Edison's creations, controversy followed. Other inventors claimed prior patents, and Edison's aggressive legal tactics earned him criticism. He believed fiercely in protecting his work, even as others accused him of stifling competition. "I find out what the world needs," he said, "then I go ahead and invent it." To Edison, invention was not an art form. It was a service to civilization. Over time, his kinetoscope gave way to projectors that allowed multiple people to watch a film simultaneously, paving the way for cinema as we know it. Edison's fingerprints were on everything: light, sound, and now image. He was shaping not just technology, but culture itself. Part 7. The Human Behind the Genius. Beneath the legend, however, was a man of contradictions. Edison could be both kind and callous, humble and proud. He was a loving father, yet often absent from his family's life. His first wife, Mary Stilwell, whom he married in 1871, died young, leaving him heartbroken and withdrawn. Later, he remarried Mina Miller, a woman of intelligence and grace who brought balance to his restless spirit. Edison was notoriously hard of hearing, nearly deaf by middle age. Some said it made him more focused, free from distraction. Others saw it as a lonely burden. When asked if he regretted his deafness, Edison replied, It keeps out foolish conversation. His wit was as sharp as his mind. He worked until his hands trembled and his eyes strained. Sleep to him was a waste of time. He napped in short bursts, often on a cot in his laboratory. His staff knew that even at 2 in the morning, Edison might be found hunched over a machine, pencil in hand, muttering calculations. But even geniuses meet failure. Edison poured years into perfecting the electric storage battery, a project that consumed vast sums and nearly bankrupted him. Yet his persistence paid off. The nickel-ion battery became crucial for early automobiles, especially those made by his friend Henry Ford. Their friendship, rooted in mutual respect, became one of the great partnerships of industrial America. Ford often said that Edison's encouragement had inspired him to pursue his own dream of motorized travel. Still, Edison's health waned. The man who once illuminated the world began to dim himself, but his mind, ever alive, continued to chase ideas until the very end. Part 8. The Legacy of Light. Thomas Edison died on October 18, 1931, in West Orange, New Jersey, at the age of 84. As the news spread, cities across the globe dimmed their electric lights in tribute to the man who had made such light possible. For 1 minute, the world stood in near darkness, not in mourning, but in gratitude. In his lifetime, Edison had filed 1,093 U.S. patents, a record unmatched in his day. But his greatest legacy was not in any single invention. It was in his belief that progress was possible, that the boundaries of human capability could always be pushed a little further. He transformed the solitary act of invention into a collaborative enterprise, paving the way for modern laboratories and innovation culture. His electric light reshaped how people lived, worked, and dreamed. His phonograph preserved voices that would otherwise have been lost. His films captured motion and emotion, giving rise to new art forms. In the decades since his death, Edison's name has become shorthand for genius. Schools, awards, and companies bear his name, yet the true measure of his genius lies not in fame, but in influence. Every glowing bulb, every recorded song, every film reel carries a spark of his imagination. Edison once said, "Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time." That spirit, unyielding, inventive, hopeful, remains his most enduring gift to humanity.